Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Belgian Football Podcast. My name's Scott Coyne, and I'll be your host for this episode. And joining me to review the week in Belgian football, which is Matchday 15 in the Pro League and Matchday 12 in the Challenger Pro League, is everybody's favourite Belgian, or everybody's favourite Belgian around these parts anyway, is our very own Joris, who is not only back from his travels in Mexico, he did manage to get to a game in Mexico, didn't you, Joris, which interestingly had a Pro League connection, is that right?
There was one indeed. I went to the Chivas Guadalajara game, against San Luis, and Omar Govea made at least a cameo appearance. He didn't start the game, but he came on as a sub together with the even more known Chicharito, of course, who was making his first appearance in like 3 months or so as well. I think I got relatively lucky with that. But yeah, I'm back from being away, but no away wins this time. Spoiler alert in the Joker League. Yeah, I guess I'll have to go back to Mexico then. But yeah, I had the best time there, so I will make that sacrifice for all the away sides next weekend, gladly.
Yeah, one of those destinations that's famous for a party as well as a great holiday, and it just shows you go to the other side of the world and you can't completely get away from the Belgian Pro League, as it should be, of course. Speaking of which, let's do a score round up on match day 15. Antwerp drew 1 each with Dender. Club Brugge absolutely smashed the Canaries, St Truden, 7-0. Standard Liège beat Cercle Bruges 1-0. Genk won 3-0 against Charleroi, as did Mechelen. They won 3-0 against Beerschot. Leuven and Union Saint-Gilloise finished 1 apiece. Anderlecht battered the Buffaloes, Ghent in Brussels 6-0, and Westerlo won convincingly 4-0 against Kortrijk. So, getting to the nitty-gritty, Joris, and getting back to it, I suppose we should probably jump in and go to Antwerp, go to the Bossel first. Antwerp, who've been very good at home this season, dropping points surprisingly. Dender managing to dig in, I suppose, and grab a point after being much the better of the two sides, for certainly in the first half anyway, and after Antwerp's slow start, them really getting on top of things. But yeah, I mean, good point for Dender, that.
It definitely was, indeed. Antwerp will not be happy with this, not efficient. Not only their first point loss at home since the end of August, it was also their first goal conceded at home since the end of August, and it immediately cost them. Mainly through their own inefficiency, but also to look at it from a Dender point of view, of course, also with Verrips having a good gaming goal for them, for sure, and really, defending quite well. Even though, of course, you will still give away some chances, which they did, but They held on well to that point. Then they're still grabbing points here and there. They really do need a win, I think, soon. Last time they won is 5th of October. But with grabbing a draw here and there, they are managing to actually stay really in the middle of the pack. And but if they would actually grab this win, they would be a lot more safe and even maybe able to look up a bit more to upwards in the table. Which they probably are. They are happy where they are, I'm sure. But it'd be nicer for them to go towards the end of the season with a little buffer, which they don't have at the moment. But so far, so good for them. From Antwerp side, the main thing, I guess, is also something in the stands more than not necessarily in the stands, but than on the pitch. But Overmars having his first, public appearance back, because I don't, much like other things, I don't think anyone really believes that nothing happened with in connection with him and Antwerp in the meantime. But he's back now, officially reinstated in his position, after his ban for his scandalous behavior before, and let's hope that's. That is in the past now, and Antwerp dropping points and losing the second position as well due to that result. Like you said, and I also touched on after actually having a really good home run, which is now hampered a little despite not losing. But they will have wanted and probably deserved to win this game all in all. But it's not that Dender did not do anything either. They did well enough to really hold on and hold Antwerp out ultimately.
Joris de Rock afterwards kind of talking about how he felt that his side were quite sloppy. Obviously, they were much better in the second half. They were able to step it up a little bit and not quite able to get it over the line, being one of those days. But yeah, I mean, that's that. Yeah, impressive result really from Dender's perspective, because nobody really expected them to get any points from that, particularly being an away fixture against a side whose home record's been really good. Vincent Everard, on the other hand, saying that he's a little bit frustrated because he felt the boys did everything. He did say at his post-match press conference, and I think he's right. They held out and got a point, which on balance probably isn't too bad for them in the end. Speaking of boys doing everything,
ultimately in this game, also. Yeah, it's this handball rule again. I think we need to speak about Antwerp's goal as well. I'm not sure though. I think it can be allowed. It was quite he couldn't really do much about it, I guess. But with the current regulations in place, it's. I think objectively you have to disallow that goal actually, and that did not happen. So I can also understand frustration from Linder on that side as well. Especially with that goal coming actually quite late on in the game. So it even though we're saying Antwerp probably deserved to win it, if one side is needed to win it, but they hadn't broken through yet, and it's not said and done that would have happened if that ball would not have gotten in later on. So I can get that frustration as well.
Yeah, they definitely got a little bit of luck, Antwerp, in the end, to get their point. Everard did say afterwards that he wasn't completely happy with the decision, the one that you're describing, around the goal and the handball incident, but it is what it is. I think he would have felt a lot more aggrieved if you were saying, Joris, that Antwerp had got it over the line in the end. I think he would have probably been a lot stronger with his reactions. Speaking of boys doing everything, a group of boys who didn't do everything were the Canaries. Over at the Jan Breidel in Bruges, Club demolished Felix Mazu's side, who pretty much didn't really show up. Bit of a non-game from the Canaries' perspective. All truth, the Christoph Solis show, a first half hat-trick within half an hour. He then gets a fourth goal at the start of the second half, and most pleasingly of all, perhaps, for Nicky Hyen, coming into another Champions League fixture this week for them, is they've managed to achieve that thing that's been eluding them on a consistent basis, and that's dominating a game from the beginning to the end. The attitude problem that he perhaps referenced just before the international break was addressed quite firmly this weekend with that win. And I suppose they come to Glasgow this week in good spirits, and Felix Mazu has to bring his players back down to earth with a bump, because of course their next game is a very big game from their perspective, and it's another Limburg derby, isn't it?
It definitely is. They will be ready for that, I'm sure, one way or the other. I don't know how Mazu will treat them this week, with a soft hand or the opposite. But either way, I'm sure they will be ready for that game. Solis scoring 4. I even recall a few players that did that in recent years, so it seems to occur a bit more. But like in the footsteps of, among others, in recent years, Gandelman, also Gift Orban, so both Gent players. I read that in the newspapers on Saturday before the game. Actually, like Onuachu also scored 4 against Charleroi. That's why it was in the papers 2 years ago. And also doubling his own total in the Jupiler Pro League this season, and in general. Of course, he'll be flying high. His interview was also quite hilarious. He had made himself captain in a fantasy pro league before the game, so he felt it coming. And he probably is first in the league now, in that league as well. Well, not as well, but Club now jumping to second because of that Antwerp draw that we've talked about before. Their biggest ever win against Sint-Truiden. And like you mentioned, of course, a welcome confidence boost before the Champions League game against Celtic, which, well, I can think based on how things are playing out in Europe and in the Champions League, might actually be a crucial game as well. On the other hand, Sint-Truiden, a yearly repeating stat, I guess. Still no win against Club Brugge in Jan Breidel for them in history. I guess they did show up, but maybe for 10 minutes or so until the first goal. They actually got a few chances or semi-half chances. But yeah, definitely still no win. And that was clear from that first goal on, and probably before that even. But yeah. And conceding 7, and they already conceded 6 at the Bosal as well. They seem to not always keep on going. At least I guess once they are behind. Against Antwerp at the Bosal was of course still under Latanzio and not under Mazu. So it's actually a bit worrying, I guess, that it happens under 2 managers. Of course. It also has to do with the quality of the opponents. And another ridiculous thing as well, of course, is Del Pupo getting a red card. But I don't know what the scoreline at that point was. 5-0, 6-0. Maybe it was already 7. I don't know, but I don't think it matters in the big picture. But yeah, just his second ridiculous red card of the season already. In this case, at least the timing was ridiculous. Yeah, okay, the way as well, but mainly the timing. Like when you're 7 down, I mean, don't make it more harsh on your own side. Although, yeah, I guess he's the one player that still tries to fight. And I guess in contradicting my previous point of conceding so many and letting go after being behind for a few goals. There's another topic, of course, coming back to already in the preview, maybe for next week game against Genk. Against Genk, they also came back when man down as well and kept in the game. So they do at times have this fighting spirit. Sometimes it doesn't work out against good opponents as well, of course.
Yeah, Felix Mazu had quite a lot to say after this game, which is not really a surprise. Although, speaking of surprises, he did say the performance surprised him a lot, and that he hadn't seen that level of complacency, I suppose, to use a strong word, in his Sint-Truiden side since he's gone there, a complete non-match from their perspective. So I think he's got to figure out really kind of what that's about. He was a number of coaches actually made me laugh this week with post-match comments. Nicky Hine afterwards making the point that he wouldn't be able to go out in Sint-Truiden publicly for a while after that result, which has got added irony when you realise he's an ex-Sint-Truiden coach as well. So that gave me a wry smile. On Club, obviously they've got a big Champions League game coming up on Wednesday evening. As we were both alluding to there, they come to Glasgow to play Celtic Joris. I'll be at that game for the Belgian Football Podcast. I'll be at the pressers before the game and afterwards, and attending Club's open training session as well. So look out for a little bit of exclusive content on our social media from us there. Looking forward to a big night for lots of reasons there as well. But yeah, I mean, Club coming to Glasgow in fine spirits, and in many ways that's absolutely ideal preparation for their trip to Glasgow, isn't it, Joris?
Of course, again, this can go both ways. That's as always. But I think they have been warned before as well already through their own doing as well in other games. So a confidence boost, and it can only help to win convincingly, I guess. And they will need a strong performance and indeed a crucial game. Yeah,
it's crucial for both sides. I think if either side wins, then they're sitting in a pretty strong position to qualify from the league phase, and it's a really evenly match tie. So it's looking like quite an exciting game. I'm looking forward to that very much.
Who are you supporting in this one?
Well, see, this is a difficult one, of course, because regular listeners will know that I lean towards the green side of Glasgow being myself, and I've been talking to a lot of Celtic podcasts over the last few days previewing this game as well, and they've been asking me that a lot as well. So it's going to be a very special and strange experience for me on lots of levels, particularly not sitting in amongst the fans. I'll obviously be in the media gallery for the game, which is a very different sort of experience as well. But for those of you who maybe know Celtic Park a little, the media gantry is actually very close to the away section, so I'll be sitting very close to the club fans during that game, and I do have a feeling this could be quite a high scoring game and an exciting game as well. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting evening, and more on that next week when we convene, that's for sure, once I've recovered one way or another. Speaking of recovering, a side that are still trying to recover their form and get some consistency going, Mira Muslic's Cercle Bruges, they went to Sclesien to play Standard this weekend, lost narrowly 1-0 in quite an even game, really, Joris. The first goal was probably always going to be pretty crucial in this one, Standard managing to get it. I thought Cercle were a little bit unlucky not to get anything out of the game. They were pushing kind of quite hard for the last 25 minutes or so. Kevin Denke still on the pitch, still around for a few weeks yet. They're going to need him, obviously, up until the last minute, I think. Standard will just be delighted to get that over the line, because they're kind of sitting reasonably nicely mid-table, despite the fact that they're still seriously struggling to score goals. And when you consider Andy Zakiri, a player, of course, you'll know well coming from Genk, Zakiri's responsible for 5 of the 10 goals that they've scored so far, which is unbelievable. I mean, both the fact they've only scored 10 and the fact that one player's responsible for 50% of them, kind of rather extraordinary. But yeah, I mean, quite a tight game, tightly fought, contested game, this one.
Scoring 10 goals after half of the league, and then not being dead bottom or anything. No, actually sitting quite well and being able to look ahead in the table, even though they will have to do, as well, as we saw some numbers coming out of the accounting numbers of last season. And there's a big loss again. What was it? Minus 20 plus. I don't know that after the 20, but I think it's 23 million euros. Yeah, extra. They saved a bit more than 1 million on salaries. I mean, that's something, but it's not the big salary cut either. I guess they're planning to do so more so. But yeah, that does show that in the article I read. That's a very sarcastic / ironic comment there, I guess. Like that, it was a good thing that somehow these were the finances that SL says did get relegated last year, because that's. Yeah, there's less costs there now, of course, because you have to pay a bit more to play in Challenger Pro League with all the television rights and so on, which they don't have to worry about now. But well, not the television rights, but like to be on TV. Anyway, you have more costs to make before there. Still 10 goals after 15 games. Indeed, 5 from Zakiri. I'm happy for him. He's never been like a very bad player either, and he's never said anything bad either. So against Genk, plus, I mean, if he does well, someone will pick him up, and that's always good. I think Standard has a buying option, so I guess in this case it will mean they might even profit more from it. But Genk, I guess he doesn't belong in the current Genk side either anymore. So. A good deal for everyone, it seems, even though he's not always on either. But this actually was quite a nice goal, really nicely headed finish. And Standard, they're still a difficult side to play against as well. Despite everything, 6 times they scored the first goal and they have 6 wins. So yeah, that says it. Don't go behind against them or you're in big trouble, I guess. Although. Like you mentioned, Cercle Brugge could have gotten something out of this game. They were, like so often, our favorite word, not efficient enough. The efficiency was lacking. And that puts them in an awkward position again and again, close to a European game as well. They have the fixture against Hearts, of course. But in his post-match interview, Muslic was quite clear about the next game in the Pro League, which is against Beerschot, is actually way more important for them, which I can agree with. But we all know already what Cercle Brugge have done this season already in Europe, and with bad consequences against probably a weaker side than Hearts. So interesting how that all will pan out. Also interesting, they really that shows that the first game in the second round of fixtures is already against Beerschot. So all the other games after that, are probably what you would not deem more difficult games than that one. Of course, Beerschot seems to have been picking up a little bit of form, or a little bit performing better over the course of the last few months, maybe 2 months, I guess you could more or less say. But so that there are no mugs, but they. After that is also what I'm worried about for Cercle Brugge already as well, that with the fixture lists, that they're a bit unlucky with that maybe. They really do need to get a result here against Beerschot, against Hearts, ideally as well, to maybe set them up for that fixture, because they will need a confidence boost once again.
Yeah, absolutely, they will. And speaking of Hearts, I've also been speaking to a rather large Hearts podcast this week as well to preview Cercle against Hearts coming up later on this week too. I feel like I've been talking to everybody this week. Such a busy week of media engagements. Speaking of getting asked questions, we did get a listener question this week about Cercle Brugge from Greg Jenkins, otherwise known as at Kid Icarus 1683. Greg was asking about the Kevin Denke deal and the impact on that in Cercle. He asks, where does Cercle go post Kevin Denke? Now, this is such a great question, because I have a feeling, Joris, I don't know what your view on it is, but this one question that they're going to have to answer for themselves now is arguably the single biggest decision the club's had to make in quite a few years, because they kind of have to get it right, don't they? Because they know he's going, there's nobody able to replace that output there already, so whoever comes in is going to have to hit the ground running, otherwise the second half of the season is going to be long and it's going to be really painful for them.
Yeah, and that's then, well, again, something that maybe contradicts what I said before. Maybe then it's good that they have Beerschot while they have a striker that has proven that he can score goals, even though it's a bit less than last season, but nonetheless, maybe it's good that they still have him there. That could have been the fixture. That fixture could have been somewhere in December or later on if they would. Yeah, we can't know if they will make a good call there, of course, on that replacement. But if they don't get that one right, things look dire, of course, because even with him, they're not in the best position this season, obviously, and arguably already struggling to score. So 16 goals scored. Yeah, it's not the worst of all of them, but it's still towards the bottom. Take away Denke's goals, Tanke's goals. It's gonna be tough. So and a win against Beerschot, of course, would also pilot them probably outside of this relegation playoff, depending on other results as well, of course. But okay, that's actually not answering the question. But on post Denke, indeed, it's a really really important that this. I actually do fear for them because of what I said. Like, even with him, they're actually already struggling. On the other hand, it would not be the first time that a team gets liberated when it's freed from the one output source that it has. More people will have to pitch in, and that could bring out the best of players as well. But at the moment, I don't deem that likely to happen with the current squad. But indeed, if they survive December in a not too bad position, then they of course can bring someone in, or someone might have stepped up. That might be the nice thing, I guess. They could test in December. Maybe someone steps up, but then again, then the call might be even more difficult, because is it a real someone stepping up, or just someone being in good form? Okay, all hypothetical talking, so maybe I should stop here. But I personally don't see the future so bright for Cercle this season.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one to watch, because I think a lot of people are wondering how they're going to handle that, because normally you would look to bring in a really promising young player and give them a little bit of time to adapt and bed in. This time, because of circumstances, they kind of don't have that luxury, really. So it's definitely something to watch out for. Are they going to look to spend some money on somebody with a little bit more experience, maybe, so they can hit the ground running? Or perhaps might they look at bringing in two as well? I mean, it's a really interesting and difficult one for them, but I'm sure they know internally who their preferred candidates are already.
They can try to loan Ilenikena from Monaco, of course, as well, but just joking in this one.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I was talking a lot of detail this week in talking to Cincinnati podcasts. More people that I was talking to this week, amongst all those media commitments, and they were asking me very much how are they going to handle this, because they could see the issues facing Cercle there. But yeah, it's a really interesting one, that, and we should know more on that kind of pretty soon, I suspect, sooner than you would imagine. While we're still on this game, I did want to ask you about a certain Standard Liège goalkeeper. We saw the return of Arnaud Baudard between the sticks this weekend, Joris. Apollo was back late, of course, and that was the reason given publicly for this, but it is beginning to look like Baudard might become more of a permanent fixture in the second half of the season. Obviously, his deal runs out next summer. Everyone thought he was going to be long gone before now. It's quite an interesting one, this, because there's been criticisms of Apollo in recent weeks, but here we have a young goalkeeper with talent who is only going to accrue value if he plays, which he's been doing. They then take him out of the side, put Baudard back in, because obviously they're looking to try and get some kind of fee for him in January if possible. Won't be a great one, because, you know, there's very little left in his deal. But the thing is, he did actually play quite well too. He had a pretty decent game. They looked more confident at the back. And yeah, you've got this ironic thing of maybe, short-term gain for long-term pain. And while I understand the decision-making and it having a kind of positive impact on the pitch, I kind of feel it was the wrong decision in that, it kind of stops Apollo's development dead. And yeah, there's not much money in a Baudard deal now anyway, so it's kind of odd.
It is odd, but on the other hand, yes, I fear Apollo indeed has not been convincing enough in our recent weeks. And and I actually do get it, but yeah, purely on sportive merit, of course, and that's of course what in the end should be the thing that prevails. But it has been going hanging over this side, I think, or over these two people, these two goalkeepers since the beginning of the season. It's a bit of a tricky situation, indeed, and maybe indeed they will try to put Arnaud Baudard literally in a transfer window before the transfer window comes. But I'm not sure. What they definitely will have wanted to have sell it in. That's already one of those things they were. Also, going back to the financial situation, he was not mentioned, but they were hoping for a Ngoy deal. The Ngoy deal that was really close to, I don't remember, but a Champions League side. Which side I don't remember, but that deal collapsed. But and then probably also cut some more wages. I can imagine Baudard is actually one of the players, earning quite some money. So I think that they would like to cut the losses there a little bit. But yeah, both there and in Antwerp you have the opposite situation. I guess Lammers is actually doing quite well, so he doesn't really have that hanging over him. But yeah, with Boutet then now also a small tangent, but like scoring this weekend as well, like can bring him back into attention, and like they don't really miss him. Bodar, yeah, I mean, I think he's still at the moment a better keeper than Epolo, and I can understand it there, but yeah, it's gonna become a bit weird there. I suppose. Yeah, I think he's a better keeper at the moment, but is it indeed a reason enough to drop Epolo at the moment, or at this point in time? I'm also not sure that with goalkeepers, it's always tricky to make changes, to be honest.
Yeah, it's a very difficult one that, you can understand it on a lot of levels, but at the same time, I think it's quite problematic for them in terms of, transfer values and trying to get money and all of those sorts of things. There's just so many contradictions in it. It's quite a complex one, but he did play very well, and I think he did give the side confidence, and I think you could see that, and I think he himself, Bodar, has actually benefited bizarrely from being out of the side for as long as he has, albeit through circumstances that aren't ideal for anybody. Let's move on, shall we, to a side that you'll be really keen to talk about, because we've not had a chance to talk in great detail about your side, Genk, since you've been away, actually. Get the inside track from your perspective. Your side, Genk, running out 3-0 winners against Charleroi in the end, and they got there eventually. Not the best first half. They stepped it up, and Charleroi couldn't quite hold out in the end. They were a bit disappointed not to be able to do that. At least Rick de Mille felt they deserved a draw in the end, which I'm not entirely convinced is a fair assessment. What do you think, Joris? How did your side do this weekend?
Well, it could have been different. Let's put it that way. I guess indeed they started really slowly. I think and Charleroi on the other hand did really well. But we're gonna come back to that one word again, efficiency. Charleroi were not, and they could have. It's not that they created chance after chance, but still enough to at least score one and maybe even two before Genk got a little bit of a danger, like towards the end of the first half. Got a few shots from distance, but one already hitting the post. And if only they had striker, they might have gotten something, but that's something we've said for 2 or maybe 3 seasons straight now, I guess. So that's nothing new. Only at the striker they might have gotten something. Yeah, that Stulic miss in the second half also was quite remarkable. That was already Genk had taken over in the second half, but Charleroi still had a few, especially in the first part of the second half, still had a few breakout chances. Among which this really big one for Stulic, which then he stupidly, I guess you could say, hit Elouadi with on the line in an otherwise open goal. Yeah. After the second half, Genk were getting a lot better, even when there were no changes yet. But Charleroi couldn't really keep up. That's another thing. That if they would have had a striker, and if they would have been able to physically keep up with their own style of play, there were more and more spaces coming throughout the second half, and ultimately they paid for that. From Genk's side, I guess even 60 minutes, you could say, like they played quite badly in possession, but in the end, they still hit the woodwork 3 times and scored 3 quality goals. Well, at least 2 quality goals and 1. Yeah, okay. Then the game was already over. The third one, still, a nice finish for Adjei Steenberg, scoring his second, and in a similar fashion, actually, both on assist from O. This time, not really a deliberate assist, but nonetheless a rebound of a shot. Genk. Yeah, I mean, Did they rebound a little bit about after that big defeat against Union? In scoreline, yes. In confidence, I'm sure also ultimately, but there were still a lot of things to work on as well. But yeah, Tolu scoring on his birthday, also nice, of course. At that time, we'll get back to that later, but also getting his top scorer title back. And also ultimately, it's a nice thing to see for me, of course. Again, deciding a game in the final 15 minutes, so Genk is physically really capable. It's not didn't look up the statistics this time, but I know at some point earlier in the season I already mentioned they scored most of their goals actually in the final minutes of the game, or final 15 minutes of the game. And also, again, I think that was also in that same episode I mentioned that, with impact from the bench as well. In this case, Rozovsky with a nice assist quite early after he came on. Also, like I mentioned, the 3-0 scored by Sternberg. Just glad to see that. Of course, 3-0. Exaggerated scoreline, but that's what will happen if one of the sides is physically strong and the other one not. I guess ultimately the quality came has shown itself. And apart from that, I thought Bonsuba had a really good game, despite not being really featuring in the statistics, I think. But that was the one outfield Genk player that had a decent game throughout the whole 90 minutes, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, you mentioned quality. I think there's a fair bit of quality in show in this game, particularly in the second half. It was interesting, Fink saying afterwards that he thought the first half they were a little bit slow to start, and he wasn't sure whether that was a hangover from the Union Saint-Gilloise game before the international break. But he said in the second half, back to the quality word again, he said we showed our quality in the second half. And speaking of which, I thought the second goal, Stoiker's goal, the ball from Anan, is sensational, and the finish is equally good as well. Really, really good. And I said to our Ben, I think it would be a couple of weeks ago now, we were having a conversation about Genk's good form and what that's their 7th home win in a row now. At the moment, it's looking quite strongly like Genk and Club have the only kind of quality and depth really to go toe to toe with one another. Come the real business end of the season, which we're still some way away from yet, but I don't see anybody else, unless somebody's able to go on a really impressive run that's going to push either of these two sides too close at the moment. Although we do have a listener question coming up about another side that kind of relates to this. Adam Zorgan speaking about being frustrated as well after the game. He was saying he thought they played quite well. They probably deserved something out of it. Rick de Bell was even stronger, as I was saying. He thought they deserved a point, which I don't entirely agree with, really. And efficiency, our favourite word here. How many times do we use that every week? A lot. We'll get it in t-shirts at some point. But yeah, busy schedule for both sides coming up. Your side, Joris, Genk, there's a Limburg derby, and then Standard at home in the Cup. Charleroi have a couple of tough ones. They have a derby of their own, a Walloon derby against Standard, and then they go to the Bossel. So it's not getting any easier for Rick de Mill's side, who are kind of stuck in the mire at the moment, and could do with a few results, that's for sure.
Indeed, and for Genk, I think the month of December will be a crucial one as well. It's a very difficult one, not looking much further ahead, but I also don't know the fixtures but I do know there's the away game against Club Brugge, for example, where, depending on results, there Club Brugge could overtake or come close, or of course it could turn all the way around. The month of December will tell me at least a lot about Genk's title chances. I still personally don't really believe in it, to be honest. But after that, maybe, and actually the playoffs will decide everything anyways, but maybe depending on how far, how things are standing then, I might start believing a little bit in it. December crucial month.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking forward to that fixture for very obvious reasons, and I'm glad you've given us an opportunity to remind everybody that it's all about the playoffs. Really, your regular season form, of course, is important, but as long as you're in the right sort of position in the mix, come that stage, it's really about what you do at that stage. And the thing about club, as we know, is often they get their act together at that point. So we will see what happens come that point later in the season. Speaking of 3-0 wins, let's move on to another 3-0 win and another 3-0 home win. Mechelen beating Dirkhout's Beerschot 3-0, a game that probably could be described as one of those old-fashioned comfortable home wins. Although in saying that, I don't think that's how Besnik Hazy saw it, because he afterwards was kind of quite critical of his side. He was talking about how he felt that they can play a lot better than that and that they lost too many of the duels, and he wasn't too happy with their ball circulation either. So he was actually much more critical post-match than I think anybody was expecting. So I don't know whether that's a warning shot to his players or to everybody else. But the positives from a Mechelen perspective is they're starting to score quite a lot of goals again, 31 goals in 15 now. Only Genk have done better, and they've rocketed up to fifth now, only 4 points off second. So lots of positives for them. Conversely, no real positives for Beerschot still.
Genk do not do better. Mechelen and Genk are joint top scorer of the league, top scoring sides of the league. Yeah, and that's interesting, because I know with Mechelen, even this season, we've talked about efficiency issues at times as well. So they seem to be coming all in selected games, I guess. But Mechelen are picking up a lot of points and are now still in fourth position and then doing really well. A win they needed as well a bit after a few games without a win to stay in that position. Joint top scoring side. Maybe not our best game of the season, but enough to win from this Beerschot side, who have only gotten 1 point away from home so far. Yeah, they're generally, of course, already behind all other sides, but that's the area where they will really need to improve a lot in the next half of the season. And I already touched on it with Cercle Brugge as well, of course. Their next game against Cercle will be crucial. If they win that one, I mean, they're still far behind. But it's again, I guess we should also mention playoffs there, play downs in that case, of course. But if they win that one, they will maybe be able to stay a bit in the slipstream of sides, because I think nobody really realistically believes they get out of the bottom four before the end of the season. But their goal is probably now to stay a little in the slipstream indeed and be able to hopefully overtake some sides in these playoffs. Yeah, for that, this game against Cercle Brugge, the home game against Cercle Brugge next weekend is going to be one of the crucial ones. I guess I don't want to talk too much about it, so I'll just mention it as well. Like same what I did with Antwerp, I guess, with their goal. But there was maybe a shout at 1-0 for a fair shout for a penalty on Verlinde from Beerschot's side. Yeah, okay, I could see that being given as well. I don't think they did enough to really deserve anything out of the game in the end, but of course, you never know how a game turns if that is whistled. Okay. Like I said, I don't want to touch too much on referees, but this weekend, unfortunately, we have to sometimes touch it.
We can't help ourselves. We do try to avoid it, everybody, but they just keep giving us these opportunities. We'll probably speak about a coach who had plenty to say about referees shortly, but yeah, the penalty that wasn't for Beerschot, Dirkhout not really happy about that. He did have quite a lot to say about it after the game, but to be fair as well, he was actually fair about the assessment of his own side's performance. He said that generally we were sloppy and not aggressive enough, so we can't rely on referees. But I think because of the situation they're in, understandably, it becomes very easy to get overly worked up sometimes about decisions that go against you when you feel that everything's going against you, which is what it must feel like inside that camp at the moment. Speaking of camps, which have things going against them, or that's the way it seems. Let's move on to Leuven. That short train ride down the track from Brussels, 20 minutes or so. Leuven finishing 1 each with Union Saint-Gilloise this weekend. And a bit of news coming out of Leuven, actually, since the last episode. Oscar Garcia is no more. We felt this was coming for a little while, and finally it's come to pass, somewhat unexpectedly when it did. We had that weird situation where we thought it might come coming into the international break, but it's come as we come out. So, yeah, rather strange timing. Although the circumstances of this are kind of quite odd, because we now know that Garcia was quite keen to go to Ludogorets, couldn't agree a severance deal with Leuven, kind of fell out with sporting director Jorge Caspregui around issues to do with that. And then there's been lots of strange things he's been saying in the media. My favourite quote, Joris, I don't know about you, was when he said a few days ago, my players don't even score in training, so they're not going to score in a game. So, the throwing the players under the bus in the media certainly added to his problems. And, Ben said a few weeks ago, I think he just looked like a coach who just was unhappy there as well. So Oscar Garcia is gone now. Temporary charge is Hans Summers, of course, ex-Denza, ex-Young Genk coach. He'll be there on an interim basis. I was hearing today that Karel Geererts, who was a lot of Leuven's fans' choice, appears to be out of the running if he was ever in it. And Stephen Defoe, whose name was thrown about as well, also not in it. Apparently, the word on the street, as they say, is there are 3 foreign coaches who are seriously in the frame for it. So it's likely to be a non-Belgian coach. That seems to be the noises at the minute, isn't it?
Yep, well, indeed, the main thing about that was the timing. that was a bit off, but I guess everything around it was probably things escalated right before this moment in time for them. Also, that quote about the strikers. I mean, how much do you want to get being thrown out? Want to be thrown out. Wow. But especially if you then see Ique Messi today, not today, this weekend, with the dribble being at the basis of that draw. Not really an unexpected draw, because both sides have 8 draws now. Most of the league joined Moster, of course, which kind of shows the stop-start season actually both sides are having. If you would think, and it is true, of course, Union are a little bit better, but if Leuven would have gotten this one over the line, ultimately the positions would have been reversed already. So it's really stop-start also for Union. Where Van Houten particularly had a bad game, I fear, personally, because he was the one making a foul on Ique Messi. Causing the penalty, and afterwards in the second half he also got a red card. Leuven did not do enough to really, even with the man more, to really deserve the win. They got a few chances. There was one big chance for Rika at the end as well, but ultimately not enough. Apart from that, worth mentioning as well the Larsen brother duel as well for some time. It was a bit unexpected, as Torbe was supposed to be in goal. That's quite regular, but Vedeles is a bit in and outside of Union. It was not expected to start this game actually, but he did. From Leuven's side. They're still really difficult to beat at home. Only Club Brugge have done it. But ultimately, I mean, the bit of a, like I said, stop-start season. They drawing a lot of games, of course, also at home. But I guess on the upside, they're the only team from the bottom 5 that have grabbed a point this weekend. On the downside, they were also the only one playing at home, so maybe that explains a bit as well the malaise of the away teams this weekend. Also, there were only 2 goals scored from away teams, of which one was then this one from Union, which was an own goal from Schrijvers as well. And the other one was the one from Dender, which was a bit of a scrimmage goal, so also not the best quality. But that's also a bit of a tangent. But yeah, Schrijvers, of course, also, I guess, needs to be mentioned here, scoring that penalty after scoring an own goal. Did not really have a good game himself either, but at least he could make up for his for his own goal with that penalty. But yeah, I mean, expected draw, I guess you could say, in the end, given both sides and the season that they are having.
Yeah, poor Siebes Schrijvers scoring on one end, the right one, and the wrong end in the same game. Doesn't happen too often, but yeah, not a game he will want to live long in the memory. And absolutely, I think a draw, probably, you're dead right, the most predicted result of the weekend, considering the form of both sides. Union still winless at home, away, all season, which is unbelievable, really, for a side that have been so consistent for what feels like ever now. Still searching for their first away win. Pocagnoli afterwards talking about them making it really difficult for themselves, despite playing reasonably well in periods in the game. Losing a goal on a counter-attack and then a red card, the combination of circumstances there, you in some respects should be glad to get out there with a point after that. Moving on to the next game, which wasn't close at all and wasn't a draw, but was not far from Brussels. So we'll get back on the train and hop back down 20 minutes back down the road to Lotto Park. Anderlecht thumping Ghent 6-0, the second of the two massive thumpings of the weekend. And a game comes along every so often, Joris, for a side in which everything that could possibly go wrong almost does go wrong. And it kind of felt a bit like that for Ghent this weekend.
Yeah, there's something with Wouter Franken in Anderlecht. I guess we could also say after the occurrences of the last 2 seasons. But everything did go wrong as it could go wrong indeed. Very unlucky first goal to concede, the first goal of Mats Ritz in an Anderlecht shirt as well. Was it of him? I think he got it in the end. He got, but I'm not sure if his initial shot actually was on target. So in theory, that maybe was an own goal of Watanabe. Unlucky, anyways. That started off everything, I guess, because until that point, maybe Ghent even was the better side without creating anything, but like in possession and then trying to dominate the game. At least it was a very equal game. Yeah, then that one started to turn things around and all going in Anderlecht's favor. Of course, that second goal, a bit of luck as well, I guess. I think that's the next thing. A little bit of luck in the build-up. A brilliant assist from Dolberg, though, I have to admit. He scored 2, but I think that was his best action of the game. At least I enjoyed that most. Then, of course, there's Tonarariga, a red card, where his second yellow card is quite debatable. Then that's where everything started, of course. Actually started a minute before that, half a minute before that, I guess, with Kosemans not getting anything for, well, I guess at least a foul, you should say, against Dean, I guess it was, pulling his shirt. I don't think it needed to be more than a foul, but anyway, Ghent would have had a dangerous free kick at 2-0. To maybe get back into the game. I don't think Kosemans deserved a red card because it was not really taking away a goal chance in the positions the players were in. So I guess that's chance on goal, no straight chance on goal. Nonetheless, then half a minute later, basically the attack after that, there's a face with Tonarariga Then Dolberg hammering that free kick in as well to make matters worse. Also in really good style. Actually, it's not the first time he does it in the last couple of weeks. I'll touch on him personally a little more soon, but that's anyway. I can already say I like the way he makes that free kick, and I think many more players should try free kicks like that. Just hammer it hard enough in the corner of the goalkeeper. Definitely at this level, there are not that many goalkeepers that actually can still save it, even if it's a bullet, and then without it being really a mistake of the goalkeeper. Even that's not a point, but just hammer it hard enough, and that's that was 3-0 at the break, and Gent the man down, and only got worse after that. Of course, Samaza got a red card for. For kicking after and I think that one is actually correct, even though I hear also mixed sounds out of those, but I can get that one. And then after that, Anderlecht scored 3 more. Against 9 men. Dolberg's second, also a really nice finish. He was a bit more quiet in the second half up to that point, but there he did. But I have to touch on Anderlecht in general before getting to Gent's frustrations, I guess. 4-0, 5-0, 6-0, their last scores. So I don't know what happened both to Anderlecht and to Dolberg in particular while I was gone. Mexico, I think he scored 2 goals in the league at that point, and now we stop scorers. It's 3 weeks later. Well, okay. He's in a remarkable form, definitely. Also, just the quality, like I already touched on the quality of his goals and his assist in this case here as well. I think that's really showing, and you can also see what a striker an informed striker can do for a squad as well. And trying to put that striker in position, I think there's not that many big changes Hubert has made tactically with Riemer, but 2 of them are Struikens is playing more regularly and higher up the pitch, and Dolberg is partially because of that also staying higher on the pitch and allowed to stay higher on the pitch where he can be decisive. Where, like I mentioned a few weeks ago, Dolberg didn't really score many goals. And then didn't feature that much in front of goal anyways as well. That's a lot. That's the main things that have changed, and that you can see what it brings to the side. And with that, now a few wins, they get more confidence. Some players are still coming back as well. So things are looking bright at the moment for Anderlecht. Of course, still a bit early to see. Maybe it's a bit of a whim for a while. It goes well. We know Dolberg is, in theory, a player that could be better that should be playing in a better league than the Belgian league even, or he can be at his best. Can he keep it up long enough this time? Because I guess he is close to that best at the moment. But okay, then to Gent's frustrations, of course, as well. That's their biggest loss in Anderlecht. Going from winning 5-0 in the last game to losing 6-0 in the next one. It's also a remarkable turnaround. It's another weird streak.
You think that is that's the most Ghent thing in the world to do, actually? That's it.
Yeah, I suppose so, yes. And then the 6-0, I mean, okay. Obviously, they deserve to lose this game in the end, but still, probably does only 6-0 where Kills can maybe say, what if things could have gone wrong, could have gone a bit differently, but with bad luck and so on, because ultimately it was already 2-0 before the whole red cards saga, let's call it like that, started. I feel like that by then the game most likely was already lost. But okay. Ultimately, the scoreline is a bit harsh on them as well, I suppose. But they didn't do enough for long enough and lost themselves a bit in these frustrations with the referee. And what is another Ghent thing to do at the end of the season is to fall down out of playoff 1 in the last couple of seasons. And that's what's at play in the next fixture against Westerlo, away against Westerlo, if I'm not mistaken, or is it at home? But anyway, against Westerlo in next weekend. So, well, I've already touched on a few fixtures, so I have a feeling next week at least, fixture-wise, looks more interesting than the current one that we're now discussing, as well, with all the away sides losing and so on. A little bit less predictable, even though not all results came out predictable in this weekend. But on paper, next week is looking really well, with some duels at the bottom, then these two fighting for that spot, with Standard also being close and playing I'll touch on that as well a little bit already, I guess, and also another derby, then the Limburg derby as well. So yeah, there are quite some fixtures to look out for. So that's a little teaser for next week's episode already. But for now, very hinting to do, maybe indeed, to win one game really, really hard, and then the next one losing even more. So, and then, they will have to bounce back. The main thing for them, I think, is actually not necessarily a scoreline indeed, but more like for this game, they will, of course, miss those players that have been sent off in this game. Kums clearly was just put on because the game was lost, and like he needed some rhythm, but it was too early, and you could see that because he more or less made Araujo's own goal as well. Himself, and then he was off the pace, which is no shame, of course. It's I think in this case it was really more indeed getting some game time under the belt in a situation where he couldn't change anything anymore anyway, for the better or the worse. But yeah, they might need him in this next game as well.
Yeah, well, that win for Anderlecht was their biggest over against since 1965. Absolutely whopping. And
yep. I was mistaken. I think I said before in history. It's not true, but far in history at least.
I actually checked this as well. I think it's November 1965. Can't give the exact date in November, but similar time of year as well. So there you go. Funny how things work. You mentioned Kasper Dolberg kind of quite a lot. A player we've been talking about a fair bit over the last few weeks. He looks absolutely reinvigorated post Brian Reimer. There's no doubt about that, which leads me nicely into another listener question that we got this week, which is Anderlecht related. It comes from Anders Nerdrum, otherwise known as at Supernova Lier. He asks, are we seeing a surge to the top for Anderlecht after their coaching change? What do you think, Joris?
I touched on a few changes that have been made and that have worked, so that's for sure. So short term, definitely. Long term, I guess it might depend on what you see as surge to the top, where that would end, where that top is. They're not that far off that you can rule them out for a title anyway, either. But I still feel like, okay, that's very premature to say. But they're in a way better position. So in that sense, definitely, where it in the end will lead to. And I think everything is still a bit fragile as well at the moment still. Yes, they won these games really convincingly, which is a big step forward. But the main thing I think now is what will happen once things go a little bit more against them, or they go behind again. They're not used to that anymore. Will they be able to bounce back? And then that's often something that is really important for title challenges. I guess how you bounce back after game events going against you. And we can't really judge that at the moment, which is their own doing, which is really good for them, of course. Ideally for them, it doesn't happen anymore, but eventually it will come. How will they react on that? Then I will be more able to tell more now. Yeah, okay, they're doing a good job. Also, it's a bit fragile on what if Dolberg has something or some other key players. I know there was a few key players that still need to come back as well. So, it also that you can turn around. Maybe they will only get stronger. It depends. Like I really want to see some game events going against them and see how they react to that before saying anything more substantial on this topic.
Yeah, I think the message from both of us to Anders is don't get too excited. ... Yet, it's definitely a marathon, this league. But yeah, the form is certainly improving, and Joris highlighted offensively there definitely has been an improvement, particularly with Stroikens playing further forward, and that has definitely had an impact on Dolberg's form as well, amongst other things. The final game of the weekend in the Pro League anyway was in Westerlo at Kupier. Westerlo running out convincing 4-0 winners in the end. It's all about the second half this game, really, wasn't it? The first half was kind of not worth bothering about.
Yeah, exactly. Not much going on in that half for sure. So yeah, ultimately, I guess a little bit harsh result as well on Kortrijk based on just one half, but they did implode in that second half as well. Though, well, Westerlo, it's a bit a similar-ish story to Genk Charleroi, without as big chances as Charleroi had, or as many slightly biggish chances as Charleroi had. Kortrijk did have one really big one in the first half, nonetheless, though, the biggest one for the Neve, which was saved after some clumsy defending, I guess, at Westerlo, which is not the first time. So that's one of my points that I noted down for them as well. That's their third clean sheet of the season, so a rare one. We're fair enough. It's the second one in 3 games as well, though. So that's not too bad. Maybe there's some signs of improvement there, but also that seems to be a bit premature to say something really definitive about. But yeah, in that second half, Westerlo turned up, and with 4 goals coming from first-time goal scorers for this season. Contradiction, of course, because Divine got a brace. But yes, it were his first 2 goals of the season. Yao, which is the surprise, I guess, that it only was his first goal of the season, given he was scoring relatively often last season. And for Bos, also his first of the season, as a defender, a bit less surprising, but mainly for Yao and Divine, good that they scored. That first goal from Divine actually was a really good one. I found a really good finish. And funny how things go then. Like, that was his first goal, and it was a really good finish, but then his second goal is a lot of luck that it ricochets against him, and then then the ball goes in automatically. You just need to look at the goal and it goes in. These kind of cliches. But definitely a really good win for Westerlo. Like I mentioned, they will play Gent for a top 6 spot even in the upcoming weekend. And that's. Yeah, they did need, so I think was the 3rd win in the last 10 games or so. So they really had a really good start. They really needed that, but that start has given that cushion to never really be in danger so far. And just like if they grab a few more wins, they will be fine. I don't think there's that much doubt amongst for that side either. Anyway, I think they have enough quality going up front, especially. Yeah, and for Kortrijk, it's looking more dire. 4 away games in a row that they lose. Their last win in this fixture against Westerlo, so in Westerlo, was in 2009, so 15 years ago. That's also a streak they want to break, but they might not be able to do so this season. That might depend a bit more on Westerlo's actually than on them, but we'll see. We never know in which playoffs they both will end up ultimately. But dire run of form. It's all crashing. Well, it's not really crashing down. It's been like slowly deteriorating again. And I mean, they're in a fighting position, but they are definitely dropping down the table. And staying there so far, back where they were. And I was talking about premature things. I think I was a little bit early with calling them, maybe not having to be too worried. Like a few weeks going into the season, the signs looked a bit better there. But it's not coming off. And also they only have scored 10 goals this season. So you can also clearly see where their main issue lies, although conceding 29, it's also not good. I think it's also the second worst of the league. So, at both ends, there need to be more efficiency.
Yeah, Fred Alexanderson was kind of very honest, as he always is, post-match, saying that the confidence is clearly really low, and we kind of collapsed really in the second half. I think he was quite disappointed, going on to say as well that, look, we need to stand up. So he realises, I think, that things are looking, fairly grim again, and that, the real personalities in the dressing room really need to kind of assert themselves. They have problems scoring goals, but they've got problems conceding as well. They're definitely still conceding too many. I mean, I think on average they're scoring 0.7 per game and conceding on average 1.9, and that's never going to end very well for you. So they do need to address that. Conversely, Westerlo's form, as you say, starting to improve. 2 wins in their last 3, and a coach at Westerlo who's the second coach this week who made me laugh out loud post match when talking about the game. Timmy Simons getting asked about the first half. His response was, the first half was shit. And we picked it up in the second half and kind of got it done. So, we like truth and honesty and kind of to the point answers here at the BFP, so more of that, more analysis like that. Well, that was the week in the Pro League, Joris. We should talk about the Challenger Pro League as well, because we've reached Matchday 12 there, and there's always plenty happening in this division. Even if it isn't Denza related these days, it feels like all the news is coming out of Denza. What happened in the CPL this weekend? Club Next lost 4-0 at home to Eupen. Liège drew 2 each with Young Genk. Denza's under-21s, because it was the under-21 side who showed up to fulfil the fixture, lost 3-0 at home to Frank Baran. Lokeren lost 1-0 in the basement game against Anderlecht Futures. Molenbeek lost 2-0 to Beveren, courtesy of 2 really nice goals from Matisse Servet. Really, really lovely finishes, actually. Patro beat RFC Liège 2-0. Ral thumped Lommel 5-1. Their good form continues. And Zulte Waregem also won 5-1. They thumped Serang. So Zulte are top in goal difference, just ahead of Ral, who were top of the table for a few hours before Zulte played. Anderlecht Futures and Serang in the drop zone. It leaves us seeing Jelle Vossen as top scorer after getting his first ever hat-trick for Zulte Waregem this weekend. I couldn't believe that, Joris. I was thinking, is that honestly Jelle's first ever hat-trick for Zulte? But it is. 60 goals and 146 in his first hat-trick. It feels like he's been there almost forever and scored loads of hat-tricks. I couldn't believe that.
Well, arguably they have not had the best sides when he was in, so it's not a complete surprise. Yeah. I guess of course he did indeed still score quite some goals, as you mentioned here, but yeah, during his spell there, they have never been the best side. Well, now it looks like things are looking up again in the second division, though. But yeah, first it was relegation sides, and last season was also a disappointment for them. So I guess that explains it a little bit.
Yeah, it does. And coming up right behind Jelle Vossen in the scoring charts, almost out of nowhere, is Ral's young Algerian striker, Mohamed Belkir. He's on 8 now. It was helped, of course, by the fact that he got 3 this weekend against Lommel, and has got 4 in his last 3 as well. So he's kind of come out of nowhere to go right up to the top of the shooting charts as well.
I think it's also worth mentioning how close it is at the top. We knew that already from last episodes, but also at the bottom, like now 4 teams have the same amount of points in the Challenger Pro League. And the main thing is, of course, we have to touch on it, I guess, Dan's, what will happen with them. Also, if they would ultimately, which I think everyone still expects, forfeit too many games and be taken out of the competition, that might actually have a lot of consequences, especially at the bottom, I guess, now that with points, then losing the points they've gotten against Danze or or the Dance fourth under 23 squad that joined the league instead of Standard last season. Now, but, that's all. It's really tricky to look at it that way as well.
Yeah, the situation at Dens is so fast moving these days. You almost get a new noticeable development every day. I mean, this weekend, the under-21s fulfilled the fixture, as I was saying, because the senior players had gone on strike. A lot of those players have now agreed deals with new clubs, which could be signed in the next 2 or 3 days. So if Dens are still a thing this time next week, and it's a possibility they might be not, because I think there's a court date tomorrow. I understand the owners of the temporary stand at the stadium are trying to force bankruptcy for money that they're due, so there could be another really big development over the next sort of 48 hours there. But yeah, players deciding that, you know, they don't believe the promises that have been made anymore, and a lot of the debts that were promised to be paid by the new owners haven't yet been met, so the money has not appeared. So many questions there, and I'm sure we'll be talking about them this time next week again. I've absolutely no doubt about that. Well, Joris, that was another week in Belgian football. It's been fantastic to have you back.
Yep, the one good thing about coming back from Mexico, I'm still in that. I guess it's a weird honeymoon phase for the full holiday. I guess somehow after the holiday, But yeah, good to be back. Glad to be talking to you again, finally, because even before my going away, there were some weeks where I had some technical difficulties and other personal circumstances. Finally, another episode behind the belt, and glad to be back. Hopefully next week with the Trident again, but we'll see about that.
Back from limbo and back in the BFP saddle. If you like what we do here at the Belgian Football Podcast, please do consider leaving us a little review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you really, really like what we do, and apparently some people do, then you can maybe consider buying us a coffee. You'll find us a link on our social media. That just helps us meet some of the production costs on the Belgian Football Podcast. Good luck to all the Belgian sides in European action this week. There's some big games coming up. We will no doubt be talking about those, the outcome of those games next week. Have a great week, everybody, and until then, we'll speak to you very soon on another episode of the Belgian Football Podcast.